What's going on, everybody, and welcome to YoungCap, the YouTube and podcast platform in which I will be interviewing some of the most successful entrepreneurs and capitalists to find out how they got to be where they are today. Now, I'm going to be your host, Dominic Wilson, young entrepreneur and president of YoungCap. And kicking off episode 1, we've got a special one in here for you today, Greg Phelps of Redrock Wealth Management. Greg, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for asking. And it is a pleasure to be on your inaugural episode. So thank you very much for that honor.
Well, I'm excited to have you on here. And we're going to go ahead and jump right on in. Greg, I've gotten the pleasure of getting to know you over the years. Your two twin boys happen to be some of my favorite people in the world, also my best friends, and your hardworking wife. Greg, fill us in a little bit. What is Redrock Wealth Management? Tell me a little bit about yourself. Just fill in the blanks there.
Okay. Yeah. So Redrock Wealth Management, a little bit step back, and I'll try to keep it succinct as possible. But going back to 1995, when I got out of college, I went to work in the brokerage industry. Back then, it was a brokerage industry. And, our job was to go sell stocks and funds and bonds and get commissions and stuff. And that was 1995. And then, I spent some time with Goldman Sachs and then a multinational accounting firm, RSM McGladrey at the time. And literally, I got just kind of disillusioned with the whole industry because it was more about selling products for profit. It was about shareholder profits, not client profits. And I had a problem with that. And I've got a lot of horror stories to go along with why. And so in 2005, I basically said, I'm going to burn the boats. I've got my wonderful, hardworking wife, which she is. And I've got two infant twin boys and a great six-figure job with benefits, but I burned the boat to the shore. And I said, I'm going to leave the corporate world because I don't like other people telling me what's right for my clients. And I started Redrock Wealth Management. So today we manage about, depending on what day, about $160 million for roughly 150 clients or so. And most of our business is retirement oriented. So our real wheelhouse, our niche is those that are like kind of 60 to 70, 55 to 70, where we add the most value. That's where we do the most work, and we help them plan their finances. We help them plan their retirement and help them live the life that they want without that worry and that stress. So that's kind of our niche and our business. And when I say planning finances, it runs the gamut from investments to tax planning. We do a lot of tax planning to financial planning.
So you had a long journey.
Well,
since
I'm a little bit older than you, buddy. So yeah, I definitely had a long journey. It's not over yet either.
And I know you said, so 2005, I believe you said, is when you really took the next step and said, it's time to move on. So back in 2005, early in your career, tell me a little bit about some of the challenges that you faced and how you overcame those challenges when you figured out that, it was time to move on to the next step in your career.
I think for me, the challenges really were being instructed or driven in that brokerage world. And I'm talking the big firms. I'm not going to name names, but the big firms that everybody sees on TV and being, here's your mantra is, I got to sell this if I want to eat, if I want to feed my family. And that was a big challenge for me because I feel it should be client focused and client centric and driven by what they need. And so that's part of the reason that big challenge led me to create Redrock Wealth Management, where we don't sell products for commissions. We don't, kind of put people into these little silos of this is what I'm going to sell you today. Rather, we take a holistic approach to say, hey, what's important to you and how do we accomplish those goals? So that was one of the biggest challenges initially. Then starting the business, there's a whole other host of challenges, which is probably more relevant to your audience, really. And, in our industry, there's just a lot of regulation. And there should be, rightfully so, because we are helping people manage their finances, and there's a lot of unscrupulous advisors out there. So the regulation, the cost of doing business is also another very big challenge because there's licensing and there's licenses and there's continuing education and there's, rent and all these other things. There's a lot of challenges in starting a business, and it's hard to narrow it down into just a specific few. But I would say probably the biggest challenge that your audience will face is execution. And what I mean by you can have this brilliant idea and the execution part of it is very hard. The consistency, the stick-to-itness, and that focus and that passion. And so I think for me, it was, like I said, burning the boat to the shore, and I had no choice. I had to execute.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I know you said you had 2 infant boys at the time. So was that kind of your drive to where it was kind of like when you had the idea of Redrock, it was like, I got to get this done right now.
I didn't have a choice. It literally was just like that, Dominic. I did not have a choice. It was, when I decided to take this leap of faith, and, I sat and had a conversation with my wife, and I said, okay, well, it might be ramen and peanut butter and jelly for a while, which was tough to swallow, leaving a 6-figure job that I was doing well at. But yeah, it was one of those things where when your back's against the wall, you'll do anything possible to make it happen. If you're an entrepreneur, and I think your audience, they're entrepreneurs. So, you're going to get this at different points in your career. When your back's against the wall, you just don't have a choice. You do whatever it takes, whether it's 12-hour days and 7-day weeks, or, whatever it is, pushing yourself out of your comfort zone.
That commitment is key. And one of the things, because you said, like you said, back in that 2005, I know it was a whole, we're 2021 now. If you were starting Redrock all over again in 2021, right now, what are some of the things that you would do the same to grow Redrock? And what are some of the things if you would do differently now in today's day and age in starting a company?
The same question, the same part of that question really is just the hustle and the commitment and the dedication. There were nights that I worked well late into the evening and did not see my wife or my boys a whole lot just to make things happen. And, you make sacrifices. You're going to make big sacrifices as an entrepreneur versus that 9-to-5 corporate gig where you walk out the door and things are, hey, great, now I can go party on the weekend. As an entrepreneur, you work weekends, you work holidays, and that's been that way for, a long time. So the same, I think, is that dedication, that drive, that passion, and the willingness to make the sacrifice. Differently, I think this is very important, and I think that this is something that's come about with a lot of social media and the internet age. Is differently, I feel it's very important, no matter what industry you're going into as a young entrepreneur and a young capitalist, is you have to figure out your niche. And I think so many people have these big ideas and they want to be so helpful to everybody on their list, and the truth is you just can't be. If you're want to be everything to everyone, you'll be nothing to most people. So you really want to focus on that niche and be something to someone. So the niche concept, I think, has taken me years to really embrace, because as an entrepreneur, you're like, whoa, I'm going to turn away these clients because they're not in my niche or they're not going to call me. But you're more appealing to somebody who will call you, and you have a better rapport and a better relationship. So the niche concept, I think, is very critical for a young entrepreneur.
Absolutely. Just not, finding that, not making everybody happy, finding your area, building that tribe, as Seth Godin would say. Also a really good book. Touching back a little bit, personal question for you, going back into your earlier start back before 2005. What was your educational background going into Redrock? Was it of like concern to you that, you had to have this certain level of education to go and give people this financial help for Redrock? How important did that play a role in starting Redrock Wealth Management?
Yeah, so it's a great question, because education today is, I think it's so much broader than it used to be. And back in my day, really dating myself, back in my day, the education was a must, and I believe it is a must. I believe that everybody out there watching this and all of your audience and your viewers, they need to understand that you do need the education. Now, whether it takes you 4 years or 8 years to get it while you're working and growing your practice, I can debate that for days. So the education is incredibly important back in the day, and especially in my field, because if you don't have specific education on the markets, tax planning, estate planning, insurance planning, if you don't have the knowledge, then how can you advise your clients? I think there are other industries that it's not as important to have a quote unquote BA degree or whatever you want to pursue in terms of college. But at the end of the day, whether it's not that important to your industry or not, you should do it. and you should get the education. But maybe that's kind of my concept of maybe it takes 8 years, and maybe you work online more versus just trying to power through 4 years. So this is definitely important, more important to me than I think it is today, unless you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer. And I hope all of your watchers do get that education at some point.
I love it. I love it. And Greg, that actually leads me into my next question, because as far as education goes in the entrepreneurial journey, being an entrepreneur and a capitalist like yourself, what role has capitalism played for you? And because I know, like, today, capitalism, it's gotten such a bad rep of people just, oh, capitalism this, capitalism that. So I guess essentially my question to you is, what does capitalism mean to you, and what role has it played for you? How is it beneficial?
Yeah, so capitalism to me is the free and the fair trade of goods and services and things of value, whether it's money and whether it's somebody who, cuts your hair. I don't have that problem, but whether it's somebody who cuts your hair or somebody who, who's doing work around your house, it's, capitalism is the free and fair exchange of goods and services. And it's just been ingrained in me, being raised by my grandfather, who was a 32-year Navy vet. This is going to take a little twist here for you, but as soon as he got out, he was the definition of what I would call an honorable capitalist. And capitalism, to me, is just that drive. And it's not just to be, people, like you said, it's a negative connotation in the media today. People think, capitalism is bad, but it's that drive to grow not only your business and your finances, but to help people along the way. It's a rising tide lifts all boats. If I can build a business and I can employ, a few people, and then they can go out and they go shop and they spend money and they do that and they employ other people along the way. So I believe that our country has lost its way with all the negativity on capitalism. And I believe very strongly my desire to excel in our company, really is derived from that capitalist spirit of helping clients. It's got to be a win-win-win, right? So you help clients, you make money along the way because you're providing yourself a job, really, and then hopefully, your clients do better. They're putting money in the economy. Your employees do better. So it's just a win-win-win. And I think that capitalism has that negative connotation, sadly, where it's just like the rich get richer. And that's not it. Without capitalism, we wouldn't have the iPhone. We wouldn't have that microphone that's on your desk right now, and the clothes that you're wearing every day. So capitalism is a staple of our economy. And it's sad to me what it's become in the media.
Absolutely. And the world essentially is run on capitalism. I think everything in every household in some form of fashion, they own something that has come from a capitalist. And I guess essentially that's the whole, I don't quite understand where it gets the negative connotation of, like you said, the rich get richer. But like I said, we run on capitalism. We would have the inventions and everything else today. So,
but it's also a rising tide, Dom. Remember that. It's a rising tide. And whether it's Amazon, they employ, tens of thousands of people, or Walmart, or whether it's me and my little practice here in Las Vegas, where, we employ a handful of people and we work with 150 people. It's growth of the economy, and it's prosperity for all people who want to be involved and want to work.
Absolutely. And I'm actually going to jump right into another question with you, leading kind of back into Redrock. And a personal question for you on your entrepreneurial journey is, was there a point in time where you had doubts that it wasn't going to work out and you really had to, put your back to the wall and say, you know what, I'm going to do this. I need to continue, not give up. What role did that consistency of keeping going play for you?
Yeah. So, there have been, I take client relationships incredibly, like I eat, sleep, and breathe it. And there have been times when I've lost clients over the years for whatever reason. If you're in this business long enough, if you're in any business long enough, you're going to have people that you're just not going to mesh with everybody. And you're going to have people that fire you, people that get upset with you for whatever reason, whether it's valid or not. And, the truth is, you have to move forward. It's very tough for me because it's a very personal thing, but you have to move forward and you think about all the other people that you're still helping and all the other people that you're going to help and all the other people that you might employ. And so it's really just a mind game where you have to focus more on what else is moving forward and all the good things versus I just lost a client and that client paid me X, amount of dollars per year. And so that's a tough one to swallow. But I think the trick to that really is to focus more on what am I going to do to make it better next time? And while I won't agree with everybody and they won't agree with me at all the times, you just have to move on. That's about the best way I can come up with it.
And I'm glad you touched earlier on relationships, because that actually leads me into my next question for you is, what role did relationships play for you, not only with your clients, but on the start of your entrepreneurial journey, with friends and family, where the entrepreneurial journey is known to get pretty lonely, as not a lot of people have that entrepreneurial mindset. So what role did you lose friends along the way? Did you gain the right ones? Did you have to surround yourself with a new circle on your journey because, you had to get it done for yourself? So what role were those relationships like for you?
Yeah, I've been, Dom, as we've talked about in the past, you are kind of the average of those people that you spend the most time with. And there were points in my career and points in my life where, the people that I was spending a lot of time with just weren't positive and they weren't supportive. And they, it's just, hey, let's go out and let's go do this. And I'm like, no, I've got to work on this. And so sometimes those relationships, they fall by the wayside. And that's a sacrifice that you're going to make as an entrepreneur. You're going to need to understand who's there to support you, who is there that believes in you, who is there that gives you confidence to wake up every day and do what you do. And not everybody is going to be on the same page. I was very fortunate to have a grandfather who did an amazing job at raising me. And, he was the ultimate supportive confidence partner for me when he was around. And I'm very blessed to have other people in my life right now that are in the same way. But there are definitely people that along the way, they just have different goals, different agendas, and you need to temper those things or put them out of your life. If your mission is this, you need to think, who is going to help me accomplish that mission? And not necessarily financially or whatever, but it's more along the lines of who's going to be supportive, who's going to understand when I don't want to go out on a Saturday night because I have stuff to do because I want to get ready for this presentation Monday or whatever it may be. So you have to temper those relationships, and you're sadly, as a young entrepreneur, as a young capitalist, you're going to lose some friends along the way because most people are not like you. Most people want to have that social interaction on a Saturday night, and it's not as important to them to build prosperity for the future.
Absolutely. And I couldn't appreciate that response more, because I think it plays such a big role right now, especially for YoungCaps, as there's so many different ways that friends go and want to pull you here and want to pull you there. So just staying on that journey essentially got you where you are today. And another question that I want to jump right into is, for you on your entrepreneurial journey, you said you had a lot of, challenges along the way, as well as a lot of success along the way. You had your fails too. And what kept you go? I know you said you had, 2 infant boys at the time, but as you saw failure along the way, was there ever a point where you doubted yourself and doubted that Redrock was going to work out for you? Or was it just something that you knew if you stayed consistent with and worked hard that, it was going to eventually turn out to be and get to where you are today, essentially?
Yeah. So it's both. I always had faith in the future, and I always knew that if I had to do something, I could get it done. And I think young capitalists need to have that confidence to keep them moving forward. Because if you doubt yourself too much, you start wobbling, and then you just go off the journey, and then you're ended up not doing the right things to keep you successful. So, I definitely feel like that confidence, but I definitely have been kicked along the way. And there were times that, you kind of sit there and think to yourself, am I going to make it? Is this going to work? Should I just go get a job in corporate America? And those, kicks in the butt, without those failures, you really don't have life experience to be better moving forward. You have to fail. And it's failure, I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. It's just learning, what did I do wrong? Where can I improve? And then working with that to make a more successful practice, a more successful business. So without the failure, I don't think I would be successful. And there have been many times where I have gone off path and kind of experimented with little side projects and this and that, and they're still financial related, but maybe this will work, maybe this will work. And they failed. My core business has always been the bread and butter and stuff, but those fun side projects are, they're kind of, frankly, all of the people on this call, that are listening to this, if you're a young entrepreneur, you're going to have these shiny things. You're going to say to yourself, oh, well, I'm doing this and I'm making a couple bucks, but what if I did this? And I would just be, I would say, have caution, think it through thoughtfully before you take these shiny things. And it's better to focus on your core values, your core mission, your core service, and the people that you can serve best. And if you find a shiny thing that can help them better, then maybe you got something to run with.
Absolutely. And while you mentioned the importance of focus, it actually jumps me right into my next question for you, which is, what things do you think that young caps like me and our audience today can do right now to get started that are most impactful, whether it be, using resources or finding a mentor or even YouTube today? What are some of those resources that you think, or those actions that we can take right now that are most impactful?
Yeah, so you mentioned YouTube, and I think you can get a whole lot of information on YouTube. I think you can get a 4-year degree's worth of information on YouTube if you actually dedicate the time. So in terms of what could be most impactful, I feel like the consistency, if you have the passion to be an entrepreneur, if you have the passion to start a business and you're willing to take the risk, because it's risk, let's be honest. There's, the iPhone that you use every day, it took risk by the people that worked for Apple and by the people that started Apple and the people that run Apple now. If you have that passion, you need to stay consistent with it. And so consistency to me means having a process. And having a process, whether that's I'm going to get up at 5:30, every morning, and then I'm going to, run for a half an hour, and then I'm going to do my educational, knowledge. I think education is incredibly important. I listen to a lot of books on tape while I walk the dogs. Even walking the dogs has taken this turn of, well, I need to be bettering myself, so I'll listen to these books on tape. So I think having that consistency and a pattern and a process, and follow, people that have been there before, that have been successful, and develop that process and stay consistent with it. And then you dedicate so much time every day, every week, or every month to those things to maintain your education, your knowledge, your health. And that's going to help you go a long way towards building your practice or your business.
And I couldn't agree more. As even as a young cap myself, I find myself, trying to put myself on a schedule every morning, and, I need to wake up at this time. And, with school, most of us being in school right now, it's like, even right now with the online, it's like you have just a process already set, and having that school 8 to 1:20 or whatever, that's already a certain portion of your day. So just scheduling that, essentially that first portion of it, and then that after portion has played just such a big role with me in just having a consistent schedule, and that essentially going a long way, hopefully, as just building the foundation of an entrepreneurial mindset of just staying organized and everything else. And
I want to add on to that real quick, Dom, because I think this is very important. Don't hit the snooze button. Avoid the temptation, because if you hit the snooze button, it's the first act of procrastination in your day. And you don't want to start your day off with a first act being procrastination.
I find myself doing it, and you've being best friends with your boys, many sleepovers, you know that we tend to sleep in, love to. And I think every teenager and young cap loves to sleep in, but it's just that, and I think that's what sets it apart, is that change of mindset of, I need to get stuff done. I need to be up at this time. And I've really had to change my mindset around to get stuff done. And I think to be a young entrepreneur, and if you're going to take that path, there's competition everywhere. So you have to set yourself aside, and that's what makes you different. And as we kind of get to the end here, I want to ask you, as far as Redrock goes, what are you excited about today in Redrock? What are some of the new, I know you mentioned you often have these ideas, sparks of ideas, and you're like, well, let's see what happens here. As far as Redrock goes, what are some of the things that you're excited about today or upcoming with Redrock that you can share with the audience today?
Yeah. So, again, our clientele aren't necessarily the people that are going to benefit the most from, YoungCap media, because your watchers are not 60 years old. So one of the things I think that excites me the most is we're going to roll out kind of a subscription service versus, the traditional models. That's one thing that I've done over the years, is I've always been kind of forward thinking and forward looking. And I think that there's a whole market out there that, maybe they would just want to have their mutual funds and manage them at Vanguard or whatever it is, but they need the help. And that's one of my joys in life. So we might roll out a subscription service. Additionally, we're going to be doing a lot of educational content on my blog, RetireWire, which you can check out at retirewire.com. But a lot of educational content in terms of the retirement genre and things that you need to look out for in terms of Medicare penalties and Social Security planning and tax planning. So, eventually that might be offered into a subscription course as well. So those are just kind of some fun things that they're, again, going back to my other comment, they're still very niche focused. I kind of look at my little shiny star pet projects now as I don't plan to make on it, any money on them, but if I do, great. But if it's something that I love to do and I love the educational piece and the content, then it's worth it for me just for life fulfillment. Not everything has to have a dollar sign tied to it. It can be just about helping people and about, like I said, the rising tide. And if I get, a bunch of viewers and I can help them avoid making a mistake, then I feel better about it.
Absolutely. And sounds like you are hard at work constantly. I've watched you personally at home, gone all the time. I know how hard you work, but just to kind of give a little insight to everybody else out there who might not know the behind the scenes work, and that it doesn't just happen overnight. And, all those ads, flyers that, make $1 million, sign up here, is not true. All the hard work that goes behind it, I've personally watched too, as you built Redrock. So my last question for you today is, to our YoungCap audience and everybody tuned in today, what is the key message, or a few key messages, if there is, that you want YoungCaps to walk away with today?
Yeah. Okay. So great question. I think I go back to the consistency. You have to have a process. You have to have a mindset in place that keeps you on path. And it's one thing that you and I have had discussions with or about, that really is, you have to commit to a certain, thing. And a lot of people get that shiny thing, syndrome, where they just want to, well, no, this will work because I only spent 1 month doing this. And that's just, you're just spinning your wheels and wasting your time. The consistency, do what you love, that you have passionate about, or that you're passionate about, and make sure that it is a good, feasible business model. Test it and see how things work, and then stick with it and grow it. And when you get to a point of inflection where you can't grow anymore, or where you can start other things, then maybe you look at the other alternative paths. I think that's very, very important, is the consistency. I believe very strongly in education. I watch I hate to say it, but being, my age, it's like I'm literally watching YouTube videos for expert things on, certain stuff around the house, or even Bitcoin. I was pulling up YouTube videos on Bitcoin the other day, and I was, I really just don't understand how this thing can't, is where it's at. Do the education. So consistency, education. And I think, again, you hit on it. You have to be willing to make sacrifices. And most young people today, sadly, I feel, are not willing to make the sacrifice. They'd rather have the paycheck, the instant gratification, without looking at the bigger picture. And, so I would encourage your audience to be willing to mentally, write it down on a piece of paper. I am willing to sacrifice, Friday and Saturday nights, or whatever it is, or golf on Sunday morning, so I can get from here to here. And when I get here, and it may take me a year, it may take me 5, but when I get here, then maybe I start to allow myself some of those enjoyments of life.
Absolutely. And on that fantastic note, Greg, I want to thank you again for being here today on the inaugural episode of YoungCap. And I know that I feel 10 times better about my entrepreneurial journey already, 10 times smarter, that is, just hearing your different tips, tricks, insights. So I want to thank you for coming on here today. And on that note, YoungCaps, that is going to be a wrap on episode 1 of Cap Media. If you're tuning in today on the YouTube or podcast, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you leave a comment, review, let us know what you want to hear, and I will see if I can set that up for you. And Greg, that's a wrap on today's episode. So is there anything else you want to say to our audience of YoungCaps today?
Nope. Dom, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It's not only a pleasure, it's an honor.
Thank you so much. You have a good one, Greg.
You too.